JLF's Brave New World welcomes you back to our second session of the day. Those of you who have missed our earlier session, Crown of Thorns, Compassion in the Times of Corona, a conversation with Dr. Sharat Paul, and the stellar list of speakers and thinkers at JLF's Brave New World, including Margaret Atwood, Oran Pamuk, Piku Iyer, Siddharth Mukherjee, Tina Brown, Peter Carey, Chitra Banerjee Devapurni, Jhumpa Lahiri, Roger Highfield, Ajit Lalwani, Amit Majmudar, or Marcus de Sotoy. You can catch them on our Facebook page, JLF Litfest, or on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF. Our official radio partner is Red FM, Bajate Raho. Our second session for the day is Ottolenghi's Lockdown Kitchen. With his fabulous restaurants and best-selling Ottolenghi cookbooks, Yotam Ottolenghi has established himself as one of the most exciting talents in the world of cookery and food writing. Not a vegetarian himself, his approach to vegetable dishes is wholly original and innovative, based on strong flavors and stunning fresh combinations. Here he talks to award-winning food writer and chef Ravinder Bhogal about his life and work and what we should be doing in terms of cooking to keep sane during the lockdown. Yotam Ottolenghi is a cookery writer and chef patron of the Ottolenghi Delhi's Nopi and Rovi restaurants. He writes a weekly column in the Guardian's Feast magazine, a monthly column in the New Yorker, and has published 7 best-selling cookbooks. His 2018 award-winning book is Ottolenghi Simple, with Tara Wigley and Esma Howard. His latest cookbook, Flavor, will be published in September 2020. Ravinder Bhogal is an award-winning journalist, restaurateur, chef, and broadcaster. In 2016, she opened her first restaurant, Shikoni, gaining a place in the National Restaurant Awards within 6 months of opening. Her debut book, Cook in Boots, won the Gourmand World Cookbook Award for the UK's Best First Cookbook. Her latest book is Shikoni, Proudly Inauthentic Recipes from an Immigrant's Kitchen. Ladies and gentlemen, Ravinder Bhogal and Yotam Ottolenghi. Please do remember to comment and ask questions by typing it into the comment section. Do also follow our handle JLF Litfest on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get notified on the upcoming sessions. And in case any of you drop off due to bad bandwidth issues, or in case we drop off, we promise to be back, or you can find us on our YouTube channel, Jaipur Litfest JLF, or of course, on Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, Ottolenghi's Lockdown Kitchen.
Hi, Yotam. It's so lovely to see you.
Good to see you too, Ravinder. It's a special occasion.
Welcome to the Jaipur Literary Festival in my humble dining room. Far, far away from the magnificent palaces of Jaipur. How was your commute to your living room?
It was very easy, but I was on the phone with a friend and I said, you know what we are doing now? I'm going to the Jaipur Literary Festival. She said, lucky you. And yeah, all I had to move is from the bed to this corner of the room to do this, which is kind of magical. But believe me, I would have much rather be to Jaipur right now.
Me too. Well, hopefully when lockdown is over, one day we'll be in Jaipur doing this.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled. You know, I'm a huge, huge Ottolenghi fan, and I'm just so utterly thrilled to be chatting to you today. You know, you don't need an introduction, but in case anybody has been living under a rock for the past 20 years, I'll go ahead and introduce you anyway. And I've got my papers, so I'm feeling very official. So
make sure I don't blush too much.
Oh, Yotam Ottolenghi is the undisputed king of cookery, one of the most influential chefs of our times, and someone I am hugely personally indebted to, because over the years I have found so much inspiration, Yotam, in reading your columns, your books, reading your recipes, cooking them, and of course eating at your stunning restaurants. You have really revolutionized how we cook, how we shop, and how we eat. And you have introduced us to the rich poetry of Levantine cuisine and its wonderful ingredients. you have been an invisible guest at countless very happy dinner parties through all your wonderful recipes. And you've seduced us with the most decadent and magical displays of food in your delis. I mean, I remember seeing my first Ottolenghi deli, and I just stopped. I was just wonderstruck in the window. And now you're even shaping popular culture because you've been name dropped on television sitcoms. And recently you've even had a song written about you. And in fact, I was so inspired by the song. I've actually written a poem about you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I couldn't find anything to rhyme with Ottolenghi. But if I was going to compose a sonnet, it would certainly be about you because you are wonderful. But now my gushing is done. Should we get on with talking about lockdown cookery?
Yes, please. Yes,
You're
please.
blushing just a little bit. But so firstly, how are you and your family, how are you faring in this crazy lockdown?
Well, I think just like everybody else, it's come out of the blue. Nobody in this world has planned for this, and we, Carl, my husband, and I have been kind of shocked to have been under lockdown. We have two young boys, Max and Flynn, they're 4 years old and a 7-year-old. So it's quite a lot. It's very special because we got a lot of time with our kids.
Yeah.
But it's also exhausting because in between, educating, cooking, cleaning, working, you just have very little time left, and you end the day absolutely exhausted. And I just think one of the symptoms of this time is the fact that we're all slightly disorientated, we're all slightly unfocused. And I feel this very much I'm constantly pulled and pushed in different directions because you can't go to work. You can't kind of apply yourself properly to one thing. But it is a magical time. And one of the things that I have to say that I've noticed that is just so clear and almost exciting about this moment is that we stop to think about things that we haven't thought about before or haven't thought about for a long time. From my perspective, it's what are we cooking? There seems to be this explosion of cookery going on and I've thought about it. Why is it that everybody cooks at the moment when they're stuck at home? And there's all sorts of reasons for that. We go back to domestic habits that we've kind of left behind in kind of modern societies because these things are done for us by people like you and me, either restaurant owners or supermarkets, serving meals, etc. But it's actually quite nice to go back, and people have been relearning skills, either learning or relearning skills that they have lost or have, sourdough or mayonnaise or chili sauce or 100 things that, that they're searching on their phones to find out, how do I make this? How do I do this? That's been very special. I feel very happy to be involved in this. In our house, we also cook. It's a lovely way to punctuate the day because, you don't have the normal ways to kind of set out the day. But breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as they've been kind of going on for generations and years, are back. We wake up in the morning, we have to do something. We're going to have our breakfast and then our lunch. Normally, we're not together during lunchtime. So we've been doing lots of cooking, with the kids. There was... we've introduced the Sunday roast, which is really not something that we've been doing in our family because normally on Sunday we're out, we go to see friends or we go to a museum or the kids are out in the park. All of a sudden we're stuck in the house. So we're having a Sunday roast with lots of lovely vegetables and, or it was Easter, we did hot cross buns, all those kind of things that busy life in a city just doesn't allow you. So we have been exploring the kitchen ourselves all the time. And even today, just now, before I got on this conversation with you, I've decided, I want to do something different for the kids and something that they will love. And so I'm obviously very child focused at the moment. And I did this pot of chicken and pasta, all cooked in one pot, and then put it on the grill to get the pasta to crisp up, which reminds me of something my dad used to make for me like crispy pasta. But it's really nice. Like I thought, oh, what can I do for them that I know they're absolutely going to love? And when you cook chicken and pasta in one pot and put the water in for the pasta to cook, it kind of absorbs it, but it also absorbs the chicken flavors at the same time. You know, like chicken and rice or chicken and with orzo. But it looks great, and so yeah, it's like every day there's a new discovery.
My next question, because I'm so nosy, I'd love to know what you were having for dinner tonight. But I'll ask you, what have you been eating for your breakfast? Because breakfast we actually have time to have breakfast these days. You know, all these it's a really sorrowful time, but there are these silver linings, like being able to spend time with your family and to cook and to do all these lovely things that you don't normally have time for. So what does breakfast consist of in the Ottolenghi household?
It changes quite a lot. So Carl and I are not massive breakfast eaters. Like we love to eat breakfast on the weekend or brunches, but it's a little bit more about the kids. I've been making, this morning I made them Welsh rarebit. So I had I defrosted the freezer, so I had these sliced sourdough bread that I had to use up. So I took some grated cheddar and I mixed it up with some Worcester sauce and egg and a bit of powdered mustard, and I toasted the bread with a bit of, and then put some butter and then put that under the grill, and they had that with a fried egg. They were very happy. And we always say that they don't know how lucky they are, because we are really making such effort to give them these amazing culinary experiences every morning. And I'm like, what? I mean, I didn't grow up like that. I grew up having great food, but nobody gave so much thought to what I was eating like we give to these kids.
Are your kids foodies, or are they kind of picky eaters?
It depends on which way the wind blows. So yeah, they're picky sometimes, but they also have like an adventurous streak. You know, they eat vegetables quite happily. We have like we
start the vegetable whisperer. So if anyone was going to do something good with vegetables, it's you.
But with children, with children you never know. You know, they can easily be, you know, very picky. They're somewhere in the middle. I find it's quite difficult with kids are very unpredictable, and what they eat is a kind of indication. Often it's a power struggle. You know, they say they don't like something without necessarily not liking it. It's the way of exerting power in the, you know, when they're actually quite powerless, you know, in real life. So if they say I don't eat this, I normally don't get into a long conversation about it.
There is, I mean, what you said about that sort of the steadying nature of meal times. You know, I remember when I came over to this country, I was 7 as an immigrant. It was that stability of meal times, knowing you had a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner that literally got you through one day at a time. And it was those flavors of home that I found the most comforting. And I think, especially now in these sort of dispiriting, mad, panicked times, people more and more are looking to the flavors of home. I know I've been cooking a lot of like dal and sabzi and chapatis and, you know, all the traditional things my mother cooked. What are the kind of, have you been cooking like that? Have you been cooking some more traditional things?
Yeah. So I've also been making dal. You'd be happy to hear, and the kids love it. Right? Yeah. I mean, you know, lentil soups and you know, they're very happy to eat lentils, which is like, even though they're picky, I think even picky kids like a lentil soup, or at least the ones that are not extremely picky. So it's a great way to get them to eat well. Yeah, I've been cooking all sorts. My background is kind of a bit of a mongrel background. So I grew up in a family of European immigrants to Palestine, then Israel. So my mom comes from a German background and my dad from an Italian background. So these two influences, culinary influences, big good culinary influences, were there in my childhood. But also, I guess the overwhelming flavors of my childhood would have been the Arab Palestinian flavors that I had growing up in Jerusalem, which is a mixed city of Jews and Arabs. So, you know, my love of anything hummus related or anything falafel related or shawarmas or all these mezes that are so typical to the Middle East, the obsession with tahini, all those have definitely been the building blocks of my cuisine. So actually, I can think of bits of all those influences that have featured over the last couple of months here in under lockdown. So for one breakfast, I made something very German, which is my mother's something's called Hoppelpoppel, which is essentially it's a user up of potatoes and sausages from the previous days, which is it's a bit like a kind of it's a kind of a double of and squeak kind of thing where you take leftovers and a hash, you put it all together. And they absolutely loved it, fried onion, potatoes, and sausages with eggs. The egg that just binds it. So I made that. Yeah. But I've also make majadra for them, rice and lentils with fried onion, with a dollop of yogurt on top.
I love that dish. I learned when I went to Palestine, that's one of the dishes. We were filming and this lady just came out and was like, you must come and eat with us, because there is that Arab generosity that, is everywhere. And I said, okay, fine, but as long as you teach me what you're cooking. And she taught me how to make majadara, and it's something I cook all the time now, because it's that one pot thing, isn't it? Which is so useful, especially in these times, particularly if you have kids. What are the other dishes like that you'd say? Because a lot of people have been asking, actually, how do you cook for your children? I've got people saying, I'm so tired because my children's sort of syllabus that I'm having to teach is like making me want to hit the gin bottle. What can I do that is like quick? What would you recommend?
Yeah, it's very easy to get into a rut with cooking, especially when you cook day in, day out. And I also find myself sometimes opening the fridge and looking and say, oh, I'm not going to make that again. And I've published thousands of recipes in my career, but for some silly reason, only like 4 come up every time I look at the fridge. And I think it's almost human nature not to have the imagination the moment you need it. So you need to apply yourself. I just go often to my old cookbooks and I say, okay, what should I cook tonight? So just like everyone else, it's not always easy to draw up inspiration just like that. But things that have been really extremely popular in our house have been fritters. So I take things like cauliflower, rice, lentils, couscous, butternut squash, all these things, and cook them lightly, squash them up, and mix them up with the spices that I know that they're going to eat. Normally the sweet spices like cinnamon or nutmeg or allspice, some chopped up cooked onion, an egg to bind it together, and this with a yogurt sauce or with a tahini sauce, they're always really, really happy to have. It's never a problem to get them to eat a fritter. And this is where people can be super creative, because it's a bit, I'm not trying to undermine the effort that goes into a recipe, but to create a good fritter is not that difficult. You just need to know the texture. Quite forgiving.
I made Sammy's cauliflower fritters from his Palestinian, and they are just so delicious. And I always seem to have a cauliflower sort of languishing at the back of the fridge. So I agree. It's just one of those lovely things that you can make with a cauliflower that just makes a cauliflower taste so brilliant.
Totally. And just to say to people who don't know, all it is some cooked cauliflower crushed together with egg and a bit of flour. And then it's got cinnamon, which is the kind of the key ingredients for me in that dish, because it gives it a certain sweetness without having to add anything sweet. Chopped up parsley and some cumin, some turmeric, and those cauliflower fritters, Sammy's cauliflower fritters, have featured maybe 3 or 4 times over the last couple of months in our house. And I always make double, because it really heats up really well the next day. I make fritters for today, fritters for tomorrow, and they eat it over a couple of days, and they're super happy. We have
my very happy memories of cauliflower. My mother used to make this cauliflower curry, and you just never throw anything away. It was cauliflower and peas with like sort of lots of turmeric and cumin and maybe a bit of cinnamon, and you just never threw anything away the next day. So the next day she would smoosh it into slices of bread and then put it in a Breville toaster with lots of butter. And that the turmeric from the cauliflower would sort of seep into that, fairly cheap white bread with lots of cheese. And it was, I literally now make that cauliflower curry in order to make those sandwiches.
That sounds amazing. So we've been doing that. I also make, talking about the rice, the subject of rice, because we talked about Majadra. I love to do like big baked rice dishes where I take something quite simple, like shallots or garlic, tomatoes. Um, if it's not vegetarian, you can put bits of meat in it, and cook them slowly in a bit of oil, and then put a cup of rice and some water, seal it up really well with some herbs, like whole sprigs of thyme or whole sprigs of mint, and stick it in the oven.
Yeah.
And when it comes out after 25 minutes, half an hour, it's like a meal, but it's a meal in one baking dish. And as rice really does really benefit from slow keep cooking in the oven, because all that steam makes it really, really light. It's just getting the balance right. But I've over the years published so many recipes that involve this technique with rice, because I absolutely love it. And in simple, there's one recipe that I can't make enough, which is whole garlic cloves, maybe, I don't know, 10 or 20, and then baby shallots and tomatoes, and you put them in with quite a bit of olive oil, get them to kind of confit, which is really just a complicated word for a very slow process, and a very simple process that takes about 20 minutes. And then I throw a small packet of rice over that, water in the oven. It's the most amazing meal to have.
I love things like that as well. And rice is just completely indispensable, but anything that you can just sort of chuck in the oven that then takes care of itself and just benefits from sitting in the oven for, long, whether it's a piece of meat or rice. But those rice dishes in particularly, and all cultures seem to have those dishes, whether it's a paella or a plov or a, biryani or whatever it is, everyone seems to have a version of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also been, I've been also trying to kind of, so again, it's a little bit child focused, but it's also, I think it kind of applies to everyone, to really kind of work on the pasta, how to make that pasta a bit more nourishing, a bit more interesting every day in, day out. Because it is the first thing that they would ask for: what would you like for lunch? What you want for dinner? Pasta. I mean, I think they just say what we all want, really. But kids just don't have that sophistication to make to say what they don't actually mean. So I've been doing this kind of one pot pasta with the starch, but I've also with a piece of meat or chicken, but I've also done nice pasta with a recipe from the New York Times, with Tejal Rao kale pasta, which Helen, I think Helen
I do.
drew my attention to, which is the simplest pesto, but you can get a whole pack of kale into the pasta. It's just boiling kale and infusing olive oil with some garlic. As soon as the kale comes off from the boiling pot, which is just 5 minutes, you put it in a blender with boiled oil and freshly cooked garlic and blitz it. And it's just so fragrant and beautiful and keeps green in the fridge for days. And then that goes over a pasta with some peas, with feta or without, with pine nuts, with extra basil, whatever you want. It's just the most incredible way to serve a meal with like zero effort for me, really zero effort.
Absolutely. And I think I crave, I'm slightly anemic, so I always crave those very green things. I actually had pasta with chimi di rapa the other day, and it was just with garlic, olive oil, a little bit of chili, and that's it. It was just a little bit of lemon zest at the end. Really, really delicious. I love things like that. We have a dish which I think you would absolutely love, and I was describing it to my husband and saying it's like my two favorite things that have been combined. So it's dal it's called dal dhokli, and it comes from Gujarat, and it's like a pasta which is made out of chapati flour and chickpea flour. You make a really soft dough, and you put some spices in there, some chili powder, and you roll it out and you cut it in little diamond shapes, and then you make a dal, like quite a sort of a liquid dal. And then you basically pop those diamonds of that chapati pasta.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good.
And you let it cook for about 15 minutes till it's still quite al dente. And then you eat that with sort of chopped onions and peanuts. And it is just nourishing, divine one-pot dinner. I love it. I'll make it for you one day.
Oh, yes, please. Or I'll make it myself if we don't see each other before. Just
I'll
ping me
send you the
ping me the recipe. Yeah.
for sure. So I was going to say, you have been really responsible for bringing complete exuberance to people's pantries by popularizing ingredients like tahini and za'atar. What would you say are the sort of key magical ingredients that take dishes from basic to brilliant?
Well, I think there is a bunch of those, and I don't mind repeating myself to an audience that I can't see. I mean, if I see them, then I feel quite bad that maybe I've said something before, but all I can see is you, which is a good thing. But you know, what I love about the food of the Middle East, the food around the Fertile Crescent, you know, Palestinian, Lebanese, Syrian, Israeli, is that it's not a very labor intensive kind of food. When I look at the food in India, I always think, oh, there's so much more that goes in before you can actually get what, you know, a good meal. You know, there's quite a lot of chopping and pounding and
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So there's a key set of ingredients that are really powerful in these cuisines, and like you mentioned, tahini, which I think just kind of elevates things, and like you have in all over the world, yogurt, and the combination of tahini and yogurt, either together or separately, those things, when you know how to introduce them into a meal, have an incredible power of elevating. And they're not like groundbreaking, they're not like inventions that I haven't created them or discovered them, but they've always been there. But the idea that you can introduce tahini and you can introduce yogurt to various stages, either of the cooking or the presentation of the serving, is a real magical ability to do this. And you know, we were talking about the majadra, we're talking about the cauliflower fritters. All these great things are really elevated by a great sauce. And you know, the great sauce is literally rich, thick yogurt, a squeeze of lime or lemon juice, and maybe a sprinkle of cumin or cardamom, and a drizzle of olive oil. I mean, the yogurt is the main thing, but you can dress it and elevate it in so many wonderful ways. And so those are really two key ingredients. There are certain spices that I think are, I'm always on the lookout for new things. I've always fallen in love with new things. At the moment, I've got the focus of this next book that's coming is in many ways it's chili. So I've got this kind of chili renaissance with those kind of chili condiments, chili oils of a Mexican background or a Middle Eastern background, and chili sauces and all the rest. A good chili sauce or a good chili oil, and you only need one in your pantry, one that you make really well, or two, is a really massive elevator of a good meal.
It's transformative, isn't it?
Really transformative. I've made since I've came here. I mean, I've made like these quick shatas, kind of Palestinian chili sauces that are really make in minutes. It's all it is chilies and salt and a bit of vinegar or lemon juice and a bit of oil. I mean, that's all that goes into them.
I love I particularly love like the Asian chili oils that you like. I love to make congee, and just to have congee with chili oil drizzled over it is just, I mean, it's the best call ever.
Totally. It's chili oil or a good sambal, you know, these things, they're just great. And like I say, there is this kind of range of input or effort that you need to put, from the very simple ones to the more complicated ones, but they have a real transformative power. The other one that I've been speaking a lot about is the lemon and all its derivative, you know, preserved lemon, dried limes, all, you know, that it's just one fruit or one family of fruits, but they really keep on giving. I mean, I carry on discovering how wonderful lemons and limes are. And again, it's about you're infusing oil with the skin, or it's about roasting the thing and taking the brown flesh and using it in a dish. It's about slow cooking or quick cooking. It's about a simple squeeze of the juice. I mean, there's just endless things that you can do. And this is incredible. Citrus has the most incredible transformative power in food.
It's my hero thing. I love citrus. I love anything sour, actually, from sumac to tamarind to lemons, all those sharp things. I love. I'm particularly obsessed at the moment with using like Indian lemon pickle, and I blitz it maybe with a tiny bit of ginger if it needs it, and putting it into a butter, and then either using that as a marinade for prawns, or like you could even do yogurt if you didn't want to do butter,
Oh,
but
wow.
making a marinade. But that particularly with butter on carrots is like transformative. Like it completely elevates carrots in a really wonderful way.
I need to write it to. I'm writing notes to self. Lemon pickle with butter for carrots.
You know, what are the kind of lesser ingredients that you think are going to be the next big thing? Is there anything that you're really excited? I know you said chilies, but is there anything, anywhere you've traveled recently where you've picked up something and gone, wow, this is just crazy?
The last place I was in California, and then there were lots of chilies, Mexican chilies, cascabel chilies, and the anchos. And I do find that Mexican chilies have got massive potential to kind of infuse so many kinds of food. And I have discovered that it really isn't about the heat. The heat is a kind of is it something that's there, but there's all these other layers of flavors that chilies bring with them. Those are definitely new ingredients. I've been using more and more in my test kitchen. I've got a colleague called Noor Murad, and she's from Bahrain, and she's been using a lot of Omani lime, you know, the dried lime from the Gulf and Iran. A really incredibly effective ingredient to be using.
That was a real revelation to me, actually. And recently I bought something which is, again, a derivative of the dried lime. I haven't used it yet, probably because I don't know how, and I haven't really seen any recipes which use it, but it's the powder. So how would you use the powder?
Yeah, well, the powder, it's kind of in the same way. So you can use the powder and add it to other things, like to sauces, to like a yogurt sauce or things like that. And then it adds that, you know, you need to use it sparsely. It's quite intense. So you put a little bit in and see how that works. But you can also use it as a finishing, like when you roast, when you want to get like the crust on your chicken, and you do like coarse salt and you rub that in and you put a little bit of that, would give you an incredible crispy, tangy skin on your chicken or your lamb. I mean, I think that would be those would be good uses for that. But I really love it with greens, like with winter greens, with the cavallo nero, with any green, with spinach. I mean, Noor, again, she kind of taught me how to introduce it to greens, because you know, slow cooked or quick cooked greens are just so vibrant, and when you add that kind of drop of lemony thing, and you can use the powder for that, no problem.
So you would just finish with it at the end?
Yeah, you can finish with it at the end and just put as much as you think it will take, and serve that with rice, with saffron rice, or any kind of great rice, and it really is transformative.
So when I announced that I was doing this interview, I had, you know, loads of people sending me messages with lots of questions. So I'm going to sort of share the love and ask some of these questions. So I have a baking question here, and it's from Anissa in St. John's Wood, who says, are there any really forgiving bakes that I can make that don't actually have flour? Because of course there are all these people making sourdough and it's running out everywhere. And she's like, I can't get flour. What's a forgiving bake without flour? What would you recommend?
So one of the things that you could do is flatbreads using chickpea flour. So if you can get chickpea flour, which I think is probably, I find that in British supermarkets, you go to the kind of the main aisle and you look for your basmati rice, and they completely run out, and then you go to the kind of ethnic aisle, which you know, which has all the stuff that people that are having grown up in this country eat, and it's full of every possible rice, but they just don't even walk down that aisle. You know, it's ridiculous. So so chickpea flour is a great way to make flatbreads, really nice, interesting flatbreads. I've been from northern Italy and southern France, farinata and its derivatives. It's really simple. It's olive oil based, and it creates a really crisp kind of thing. And I know in Indian cooking there is an equivalent. Yeah, so this is definitely a way to get around not using flour. When she says bakes, I assume she means savory, but there's a whole lot of cakes that you use flourless cakes. Using almond meal or any other nut meal. All kind of great ways to bake. Breads, I guess, again, the substitute flours are not immediate. You need to kind of follow a recipe. I always find that. I mean, it's not me. It's just the thing. I mean, with baking, you really need to first follow a recipe. But there's a lot online, and I really do recommend the alternative flours, the rice flour, chickpea flour. They're very good for these.
Has there been anything that you've particularly been longing for that that has been sort of out because of a shortage? Anything you haven't been able to get your mitts on?
Well, I find that there's actually more to get than you'd think. So if you queue long enough, you normally can get anything you want. The one thing that is really hard to get is yeast. I think yeast is the one product that I consistently couldn't find on the shelf, and I do not, for my sins, have a sourdough starter at home, which is I should have probably thought about it or died.
I find it really peculiar that people are naming their sourdough starters. There's a Sally somewhere, a Janet in another.
Yeah, no, I guess you develop a relationship with your starter because you nourish it as if it was a member of your family. You carry on feeding it. It's very. I think people do use that kind of the family metaphors. I mean, there's the mother dough and the mother starter and all the rest. So, oh, hello, we've got a friend.
Is that Flynn or Max?
That's Max.
Hi, Max.
So, Max, come on. Let me just finish here, okay? Go on. Max. That's Max, please. I'll come later, okay? I'll come later. Sorry.
I love it.
So their kids have been photobombing every possible Zoom meeting that I have, including this now.
I'm going to get Nadeem in a second. He can photobomb me. I don't have the kids yet.
So what were we talking about?
We were talking about, actually, you know what? On to another thing.
Okay.
This is, a special day for many reasons. One, which I'm sure a date that you've had in your diary for a long, long time. It's National Hummus Day.
Oh, yeah. Is that today?
So lots of people have been asking what makes the perfect hummus. Can you talk us through a recipe of how do you do it?
Okay, I was quite a hummus fanatic, and now I've become much more forgiving. I don't think it's the age. I don't think it's the kind of the distance from the part of the world where I grew up, where I learned, all about hummus. So there is a very traditional recipe that I follow that Sami and I published in our book Jerusalem, which involves soaking the chickpeas in water overnight.
Not tins.
This recipe, I'll move on to tins in a second. Okay. This involves soaking dried chickpeas overnight and then cooking them in a pot with a bit of baking soda to break down the skins dry without even adding the water. And then adding the water and cooking until very, very soft. And then some of the skins float to the surface and you skim that. For a very smooth hummus, you want to get rid of at least some of the skin. Some people peel, which is another option, but that's quite a lot of work. And then it's got a good quality tahini, garlic, lemon juice, and salt and water. I mean, that's all there is. And that's a very traditional and very good recipe, and I love that. But now I've become a bit more forgiving, and I'm happy for people to use ready-cooked chickpeas. I think the run-of-the-mill tin is not great, but if you can afford and you can find the premium chickpeas that come in jars and from Spanish or Portuguese brands, they're really, really good. They're really soft and flavorsome, and they do make a good hummus, I have to say. And I don't criticize anyone who uses those. I think they're almost as good as this. And then also with a kind of, so I used to think, only tahini, but actually tahini and olive oil still works, or you can make an olive oil based chickpea. I mean, I've become much more lenient towards people's variation, because I also now, especially at the moment, it's such a good time to be experimenting, and we just don't have the luxury of having every ingredient on the face of the planet in our pantries.
What are your thoughts on all these like flavored tahinis? I've seen everything from turmeric tahini to this tahini to that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that I don't really like. It's a bit like flavored cheese. It's a bit like infused oil. I mean, if you want to do that, do it in your own kitchen and do it in a kind of in a thoughtful way. But I don't see the point of getting things that have been kind of made up for you, because there's no reason for it. I mean, they're just, those are basic ingredients, and they're just so good as they are, and they don't really need any adorations or additions or anything like that.
Talking of hummus and tahini, which is obviously an integral part of hummus, a friend of mine, Natalie, who's in Bristol, says that she loves tahini, but some of the ones that she's bought in the past can taste quite rancid or bitter. What's your favorite brand, and what should one look out for when buying tahini?
Yeah, well, first of all, when it comes to tahini, I think it really depends on, it needs to be, the best sesame seeds come from Ethiopia, and those and be very well toasted. So the brands of tahini that I normally use are Lebanese, Palestinians, or Israeli, because in that part of the world there is kind of a long tradition of an appreciation of those particular sesame seeds and the processes of toasting them and grinding them. They are really, it's a bit like, it makes a huge difference. In most supermarket shelves in the UK, the standard tahini comes from Greece or Cyprus. Without being judgmental, that's not my favorite ones. They don't have the flavor. So it's a case of tasting, and tahini, once you've opened it, you need to use it fairly quickly, because it does tend to get rancid. But nobody should be put off by the fact that it splits to liquid and solids in the jar or in the tub, because that's just a natural thing. Once you stir it, they come back together.
Yeah, and what's the best? Do you tend to warm it up? Because sometimes it's really, really quite solid, and just stirring it, sometimes
I don't think it needs to warm up. You just need a firm hand and stir it very, very vigorously, so the solids and the liquid and the oils mix up together. When you make it, there is a kind of a leap of faith moment where you have to start adding your liquids, and then it sets and kind of pulls together, and you think, oh, something has gone wrong. But you need to pass that stage and carry on adding your water, and then you get that kind of loose, creamy texture. I think with tahini, it's really a matter of kind of learning how to know. A lot of people, when they use it the first time and try it the first time, they don't know exactly what to expect. But once you've known it, it's so easy to get addicted to it. It's just a wonderful thing.
I love it on toast. It's such a good snack.
Yeah.
And actually, talking of snacks, obviously this time where everyone needs comfort, I think I've been overeating quite a bit, but everyone's snacking. What's your kind of go-to snack? What do you have in your treats cupboard?
My go-to snack. So I'm addicted to nuts. I love nuts, and I can eat them just plain raw. And often in the evening, when I sit in front of the TV and watch something, I get a glass of wine and almonds or pistachios, and I can really have them whichever way they come. I'm very happy with that. But I also obviously like to roast them and cook them with spices. I love rosemary nuts. So a tray of nuts of various kinds mixed with a couple of sprigs of rosemary, a tiny bit of oil, a little bit of garlic, and just in the oven with salt, and you get that kind of rosemary flavor. That's almost as much as you'll need, and it's good, and it's very good for you.
Yeah, I love any kind of anything that gives that kind of crunch to that you can take by the handful is lovely. Yeah. We did a really nice nuts thing at Jikoni, where we were doing. It was quite labor intensive because we were getting lime leaves and then taking the stalks out, deep frying the lime leaves. And then making a powder out of those and mixing with chili and mandarin zest. and then baking the nuts with that. And that, again, the fragrance, and I mean, addictive, you just couldn't stop. So I've stopped making them now because I just kept eating the whole stock. But a good snack, of course, needs a great drink. And Aisha in Kingston wants to know, what is Ottolenghi's lockdown tipple? You don't have to say how many you have.
So I like vodka and tonic. It's something that I, with a squeeze of lime, it's definitely something that I have. The trouble, I really do love a good Negroni. The only problem that I find is that I find it very difficult to stop. Literally, I can have them one after the other because of the sugar level. It's just something that you do. More often than not, I get a good Italian red wine, and that's what I have until I can easily go through half a bottle or more, at the end of the day, and I have no problem with that. And I try to have a bit less now because you need to be a bit more focused and family time. But yeah, a good Montepulciano or some good Italian wine. I'm sorted.
I'm like you. I'm with you on the Negronis. I love them, and also because they're so easy to make, because it's always 3 parts of those wonderful things. And I like that they taste slightly medicinal, like they're good for you.
Yeah, totally.
But Yotam, we both come from fairly similar cultures in that we both come from kitchens that were probably very frugal, very resourceful. Are there those kinds of things that you picked up that have been passed down from your maternal family that you still put into practice today?
Let me think. Yeah, one of the things that we ate a fair amount, I have in Jerusalem a recipe passed on from my mother, stuffed peppers. And one of the things that I have had a lot growing up, I do it less now because it is labor intensive, and often to put a meal on the table, you just don't take the time. But stuffed vegetables are a wonderful thing to do. And my mother makes stuffed red peppers, and with either just with rice and flavorings, or with rice and a bit of minced meat. And it's again, it's something that is very cross-cultural around the Middle East, North Africa, and the Southern Mediterranean. And it's a great use. It's a great way to make a really lavish meal with very humble ingredients, because you have your vegetable and you have your cheap starches, whether you use bulgur wheat or rice, and a tiny bit of meat if you want to, and it creates a whole very, very impressive meal that is just fantastic to serve. So that's definitely something that I've kind of taken on from childhood.
I think we're sort of slightly running out of time. I could talk to you all day, really, I could. But I wanted to touch on your book, which you kind of talked about already, about the chilies. What else can we look forward to from that book?
Flavor. So Flavor is a vegetable cookbook. And again, it focuses on the world of vegetables. When I say vegetables, it's vegetables and grains. And it will have a slightly Italian angle. It will have a slightly Mexican angle. Again, it's like with a big mix of flavors that I love using. And we've given a lot of thought to this book, and which I tried to understand through the recipe with my co-author Ista Belfridge, who's an incredible cook herself. And she and I have been trying to think, how do you create flavor bombs with vegetables? So there's 3 key sections. One is about processes, the other is about pairing, and the other is called produce. So the 3P, and through each one we kind of explore how you kind of load vegetables with flavors. And there's like really cool, nifty little tricks and more complicated things that go on, but lots of exciting vegetable dishes to look forward to in September.
I love all those nifty little all your nifty little tricks. They're always so useful. I have one more question before I get to questions from the audience. but you've done so much in your life, Yotam. Philosophy, journalism, chefing, restaurateuring. Can we expect a memoir one day?
And that is something that I don't think I'm ready to write a memoir. You know what, the one I might regret saying that, and I will write a memoir one day, but I just feel that I've been writing so much about myself in the context of food that I've kind of exhausted all my memories, that I don't know where I'm going to draw more memories on. That maybe I'll just have to do with non-food related memories, but I've just written so much over the years. Yeah.
You have to make the memories. So let me get to some of these lovely audience questions. So here's one. As a cook this is from, it's a private question. As a cook in the current pandemic situations, how do you feel about grow your food movement? How do you feel about growing your own? Do you have a garden patch?
I don't have a garden patch, but I think it's a great thing to do. I think one of the things that I've noticed in during this lockdown, and there has been initiatives, and many of the chefs that work in my restaurant have been doing it, is that people are out in their gardens growing vegetables, and it is a wonderful way to connect with your ingredients. Then Dan Barber from Stone Barn in New York has started this movement that really encourages chefs in front of house, people from restaurant, to go out and grow vegetables, just in honor of all the farmers that are actually struggling at the moment, because the sustainable small farms that have been supplying so many of the restaurants are really struggling at the moment because we're closed. And people look at empty restaurants and they think, that's not great for the community. But actually, there's a whole ecosystem of suppliers and farmers and cleaners and IT and all those people that really feed those.
Right?
Yeah.
All the humanity that goes behind it.
Exactly. All the humanity that goes into it. So I think it's really important for chefs that idea that Dan Barber had, to kind of remind ourselves that these farmers and put so much effort into big agriculture will always survive, but the innovators and the small farmers that produce great crops for us are really struggling at the moment. So it's important to remember them, and planting something in your own garden is a great way to remember this.
And one final question, and seeing as this is a literary festival, Tej Rawal asks, I'm trying to get into food writing, but really struggle to articulate myself when it comes to food. Are there any exercises you would recommend to help writing?
Really good question. I mean, I've done food writing, given food writing workshops in the past, and so I've given it some thought. I think it's very important to experience. I think first experience, then write. I think it's really important to gather those experiences, because the rich experience will give you materials to write about. The other thing is it's a cliche, but you really need to be 100% true to yourself, because you're never going to be a good food writer if you're trying to emulate someone else's style or their kind of writing. I think it needs to come from very deep down inside. It needs to be kind of overflow, from experiences, for things those are the kind of foods you need to feed your writing, because otherwise it could be quite shallow. So go out, experience, have these kind of incredible riveting life experience through food, and that will probably translate itself to good writing.
Well, thank you so much, Yotam. This has really been the highlight of my lockdown chat with you, and I'm very much looking forward to coming and eating in your restaurants, God willing, when the lockdown is over.
Ravinder, thank you, and thank you for creating this incredible restaurant, Ciccone, which I have to say is really, I love the atmosphere there. We were talking about restaurants, but not just about the food. They're about the atmosphere. It really is a projection of your spirit, and through food, through service, through decor. and I can't wait for the day that I'll be back there, and hopefully soon, hopefully in this July.
I hope so. Lots of love.
Thank you very much.
Yotam, Ravinder, I don't know about the rest of our viewers, but I think everybody's going to be rushing to their kitchens to sort of cook up some of what both of you have been telling us about, the cauliflower and the cheap white bread with the cheese, or the drizzling olive oil onto chickpeas overnight, etc. Absolutely delicious. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we weren't able to take most of your questions, but what we perhaps will do is just forward them to Yotam and ask him to reply to them and post them back onto our Facebook page. Yotam, you need to thank Max as well, because he went out and did a like on the live GLF live page. So thank you, Max, and you both were amazing. And really, what a difference! What a comforting conversation, and I think true distraction from what we've all been going through. Thank you all for watching and being such a wonderful audience. And we thank our radio partner, Red FM, Bajate Raho. Please do remember to log in on Saturday, the 16th of May and Sunday, the 17th of May for our next set of great sessions. On 16th of May, we have Jim Al-Khalili, How Indian Mathematics Transformed the World, with William Dalrymple. Ancient Indian mathematics and astronomy was well ahead of its time, as Aryabhatta and Brahmagupta pioneered the decimal and numeric system we use today. Here, theoretical physicist, author, and broadcaster Jim Al-Khalili talks to William Dalrymple about their discoveries. This will be at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 3 p.m. British Summer Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The second session on Saturday is The Age of Anxiety, Casey Schwartz and Amrita Tripathi in conversation. A crucial conversation about uncertainty and anxiety, collaterals of our times, and the power of focus and attention to shape our lives as we sit with our thoughts and our screens in isolation, trying to stay sane. Casey Schwartz's new book, Attention, A Love Story, is both a personal account and one that seeks inspiration from phenomenal writers such as Aldous Huxley, William James, and Simone Weil. Amrita Tripathi has recently co-authored Real Stories of Dealing with Depression, which works towards destigmatizing mental illness in India, and is co-authoring another book on anxiety. And this will be at 9 p.m. IST, 4:30 p.m. British Summer Time, and 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. For those of you who wish to stay on and listen to what we normally have, which is some brilliant music, we have East-West A Legacy, Pandit Shubhendra Rao and Saskia Rao Dehas. Pandit Shubhendra Rao is an internationally acclaimed performer, composer, cultural entrepreneur, and music educator. A protege of Pandit Ravi Shankar, Shubhendra Rao has performed at major music festivals and prestigious concert halls across the world. He is accompanied by Saskia Rao Dehas, world-renowned virtuoso, cellist, and composer on the cello. In this extract, they celebrate the centenary of Pandit Ravi Shankar and his birth year in a performance that showcases the collaborative elements of his legacy. Enjoy the rest of the week.